YouTube? It's Marco B! Back with another video, man. Thank you, Jesus, for allowing us to be here another day. Shout out to Don requested this video. This is the Philadelphia Flyers Broad Street Bullies versus the USSR, I believe. It says the Flyers Red Army game, the roughest, most bizarre hockey game ever. Let's not waste no more time, man. About 75% of my viewers aren't subscribed. So if you are subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, turn those post notifications on. Let's get into this video.
Cold War, but for nearly a 40-year period from 1947 to 1991, the entire world was on edge, as two nuclear-capable superpowers held one of the scariest and longest-lasting dick-measuring contests the planet has ever seen.
I'm on the right video.
And before the Berlin Wall came down and the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of the Cold War was fought in sports arenas as the two ideologies squared off to show which nations were better at supposedly inconsequential events. And there was no more a symbolic battleground than the frozen ice as the Soviet Union set upon a mission to dominate the world in hockey. And on a cold January night in 1976, in the Philadelphia Spectrum, the most insane, violent, and bizarre of hockey games took place, and we're gonna learn all about it right after this.
Sports facts, bad jokes.
In the 70s, the Russians began asserting themselves as a world power in hockey, and in 1972 played the Canadians in the Summit Series, which provided plenty of drama, hard-hitting action, and a very close finish, as the Canadians edged the Russians in a battle of loaded teams. Fueled by the anger brought in that controversial series, the Russians set out on a mission to dominate international hockey, and in 1974 the Soviet Red Army team whipped up on a team of WHA All-Stars and was generally regarded as the best team in the world. With amazing talent like Valery Karmelov, Vladimir Petrov, Boris Mikhailov, and standout goalie Vladislav Tretiak, the HCCSKA Moscow team engaged the NHL in a series of exhibition games, which were not treated as exhibition games at all. The Russians had already ran through the Rangers 7-3, tied the Canadians 3-3, and whipped the Bruins 5-3. And up until then, nobody had really whipped the Red Army's ass on any ice. You had to bring it just to tie these dudes. The Western Bloc's last hope came down to the defending two-time Stanley Cup champion Philadelphia Flyers, who were led by the imposing Canadian Bobby Clarke. All of America and Canada pinned their hopes on the Broad Street Bullies. You know, it was much more than a hockey game when even Ranger and Bruins fans wanted to see the Flyers win. This game meant a lot. However, it was unknown whether the Flyers' physical style of play would be able to match up with the highly skilled Russians. But the Bullies had a plan. And the plan was to beat the ever-living shit out of the Soviets with gritty, rough hockey that had a lot of stank on it, and get as much rubber as they could on Tretiak, who was on fire during the Russians' North American barnstorming tour. And before the game even started, rumors of how the Russians were going to behave started to swirl. They knew the Flyers were going to throw the kitchen sink at them. They wanted to get under the fans' and players' skins, and they knew how to do it.
You lose, and I think it'll be worse than dying.
Starting at puck drop, the Flyers came out hard, finishing checks, dominating play, using a system designed not to chase the Russians but rather engage them. And the Flyers overwhelmed them, taking 12 of the first 13 shots and leaving them dazed from the physical beating they were taking. And then the incident happened. With the score tied 0-0, Flyers defenseman Fred Van Impe delivered a hard check to Karmelov, the same player who had his ankle broken in the Summit Series 4 years earlier. No penalty was called on this play, and Karmelov laid on the ice for a significant amount of time as the fuming Russians began vocally protesting and showing their discontent. And that led to them walking off the ice in protest, saying they would not return because of the Flyers' dirty tactics. And sit in the locker room they did for many minutes as the stunned crowd and international audience all quietly said to themselves, what the hell is going on here? Especially with the game tied, and it looked like the Russians would simply walk away from the last game like they blocked the Flyers on Twitter, but leave it to capitalism to fix everything. Flyers chairman Ed Snyder saw the situation and knew how to get the Russians back onto the ice by not paying them. Snyder told the Russians that the $200K that they were owed for the entire trip wouldn't be paid to them unless they completed the game. Ideology aside,
bro said, look, you don't want to finish the game? I'm shorting your pockets. I ain't got to pay you nothing. You ain't, and that's kind of fair though. Like, you know what I'm saying? He paying money for a full game. That's crazy.
His money, and after 17 long, awkward, and tense minutes, the Russians came back onto the ice. And 17 seconds later, the Flyers popped in their first goal when Reggie Leach scored. 5 minutes later, they made it 2-0. The Flyers didn't change a thing they were doing. They continued to pound the Russians with even more anger than before, seemingly agitated that they had to wait to resume the beatdown they were putting on them. The Flyers went up 3-0 and ended up winning 4-1, outshooting the Russians 49-13. And had it not been for the outstanding play of Tretiak, probably would have been a much greater domination. It would be the only win the NHL would muster against the Russians. However, since it was done in such a convincing style, a small flaw in the Iron Curtain's hockey armor was revealed. After the game, the rhetoric from both sides was intense. Russian coach Konstantin Lokev called the Flyers a bunch of animals. Milt Dunnell of the Toronto Star had written this hilarious comment about the Russians. The Moscow Musketeers had to put a big fat 0 on their aptitude test by pulling one of the dumbest tricks in sports. They hauled their team off the ice. Lokev knew the conditions before he came. Nobody loves playing in Philadelphia. Lokev wanted to know what it's like to play the Flyers in Philly under NHL conditions. Well, that's what it's like.
Damn.
Not much has changed in that last statement, but for one night, Americans, Canadians, even Ranger fans actually liked the Flyers, and perhaps it was on that night that some young Americans believed they could do the impossible too, as 4 years later, the miracle on ice happened. And after the Cold War ended, Russia has remained an international hockey powerhouse, producing outstanding NHL talent and still making an impact on the world scene, recently winning gold in the Olympics. It's wonderful to think that as time has gone on, hockey is no longer being used as a sport to showcase political might and competing nations' militaristic superiority, and that it is all about hockey now. And that two powerhouse nations aren't at each other's throats with their fingers on the nuclear trigger, both sides learning that, indeed, we can coexist. But on one cold night in 1976, all of North America agreed on one thing. Nobody comes into our house and pushes us around.
Okay,
well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already.
I like that. I like this.
You made it to the end of this video. 17
minutes is wild, though. Bro, they went in the locker room and had a couple beers. they probably took the gear off and everything. They're like, yeah, nah, we're not playing, bro. They beat our ass. They beat our ass. What, you think I'm gonna go out here and get hit for you, Bob? Nah, I'm just playing. But nah, that's good though. That was a very good video, man. I like that video right there. Shout out to the Flyers. Shout out to the Broad Street Bullies. Imagine, dang, the Russians was really that dominant up until that point. Damn. That's right. But that's what they say in life, though. You know what I'm saying? There's always somebody bigger, always somebody richer, always somebody finer. You know what I'm saying? There's always somebody better. But, you know, one day you'll meet your match. And that's crazy. That's crazy, though. Imagine they would have beat the Flyers. Oh, my gosh. I don't even know. Oh, you can't even say what would happen, but because it didn't. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn those post notifications on. And again, shout out to Don for this request. If you guys have any more requests or suggestions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll see y'all in the next video. Stay peaceful, stay positive, stay disciplined, and always, always, always be kind.